We are back for another episode of the Gaming Dadcast. Welcome, welcome. If you're joining on one of the audio platforms, here's your virtual wave. And if you're joining on YouTube, well, hello again. Thanks for joining again. Today we're going to be talking about the good old Nintendo 64, and we're going to be talking about content creation and the emotional and mental stability, that comes with that and all the fun stuff that comes around that I've discovered. So let's get right to it, yeah? So my father did not care for technology. He did not want to learn anything about tech, and he made that very clear. Okay, well, let me clarify. He didn't want to learn anything about new tech outside of NASCAR and other areas of professional racing. I don't know if he simply didn't care or if he had had a tough time understanding new tech, but he just didn't want anything to do with it. This made it very difficult to connect with him. I liked cars enough, sure, and I really like cars now, but he was obsessed with them, and I ended up getting bored. I loved video games and watching shows like Pokemon, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and X-Men. He wanted nothing to do with any of that. Our relationship never really grew over the years, and in fact, didn't evolve at all until I moved out of the house. He took care of my basic needs, food, the house, etc., but he didn't really seem to care to be around me. At least that was my perspective as a child. One year, we ended up going to Disney World because he suddenly decided that he wanted to go to the East Coast, hit a cruise ship, go to the Caribbean, and visit various parks in the Southeast. I was so excited because I actually cared about this trip. Maybe this would be the time we would connect on some level. It was exciting. We left on our trip, saw many different sights. I tasted alligator for the first time and only time. Experienced a crazy storm that was so bad it caused us to miss out on Universal Studios in Florida. I swam with dolphins, went to Nassau Bay and picked up some souvenirs. We did a ton of stuff that was so cool, and we were having a blast. Then the day came for Disney World, and it was so cool. We went everywhere, rode on so many rides, and saw everything we could. My favorite experience was this alien ride, I guess it was a ride, where an alien broke out and the crowd could do nothing but watch. It had live action stunts and various cool tricks, and it scared the hell out of me as a kid. Anyway, toward the end of the third day at Disney World, the last day we were there, we came across this odd future place, this building. I believe it was called the World of Tomorrow. I don't remember, but that's beside the point. It was a place where it showed what people in the past thought the future would be like, like flying cars and things like that. And what specialists supposedly thought where our future could actually lead to. It was really cool. I've always been into sci-fi stuff. Most of what was on display was neat, but I didn't truly believe that was our future. That is until we came across something that actually made sense to me to be in our future. They had the Nintendo 64 on display at various kiosks, and everybody could play Mario 64 on them. When you started, you had a timer next to the screen, but if nobody was next in line, you could just replay it. For whatever reason that day, the crowd didn't appear to be in this future zone. So I was able to play and play and play and play and play Mario 64. I needed this game. I needed this console. My dad was so uninterested, and after a few replays told me we needed to move along. I vowed to myself that I would get the N64 and Mario 64. This is my story, named A Difference in Parenting, the Tale of the Nintendo 64. After our trip, we made it back home. This was before we moved to Humboldt County, so we were still in the Sacramento area. I couldn't wait to tell my friends, Chris and Brian, about the N64 and how cool it was. They got just as hyped as I was, and they both wanted to get the console too. A few weeks later, Christmas came around, and both Chris and Brian got their own N64 with Mario 64. And I couldn't be more jealous. I didn't get it. But at least I could go over to their house and play. I still held on to the goal of getting one myself, so I did not give up. Being a parent now, I can clearly see how obvious it is when my kids want something. They think they're being so discreet and charming, simply alluding to something that would make them really happy if they got it. They don't realize I'm not fooled for a minute. I can only imagine what my dad endured as I tried to subtly present my case as to why I needed, no, not just wanted, needed the N64 with Mario 64. Man, I really feel like my hand-eye coordination has gotten so much better. I wonder what's done that. Technology is so cool. I think I heard they were making a couple racing games for the Nintendo 64 too. Look, even insert NASCAR driver name here was playing the Nintendo 64. I thought for sure that I would get a console soon, but it just didn't happen. I want to say that this went on for at least 2 months, but I honestly can't recall. What I can recall is that it felt like forever. I had started repeating my pitches, and even I knew the time had passed. I slowly lost hope of getting the console and began to move on. You see, my dad did not respond well to being told what to do. So he simply didn't respond to anything I did at all because of the way that I presented it. Almost as soon as I stopped and admitted defeat, he finally spoke up about it. A few days after I fully stopped bringing it up, he came to me and asked, "Hey, do they sell that Nintendo thing you talked about at Toys R Us?" "Yeah, they do. Why?" I asked apprehensively. "All right, let's go." We got into his Toyota pickup and drove down to the nearest Toys R Us. I couldn't believe it. I felt like I was in a dream, but it was really happening. It was actually happening. I was getting the N64 I had wanted for so long. We walked in, went to the front of the console ticket line. They had everything locked up behind the registers. You had to pull a ticket, go get in line. It was a whole thing. And my dad paid for the console. We walked out and we couldn't get home fast enough. As we pulled into the driveway, I raced into the house, down the hall, and into my room. I popped it out of the box, set it on my old CRT TV, and that's where it all stopped. I had such an old TV that it didn't have the RGB connection. I connected my SNES via this weird adapter, but that adapter didn't work with the N64. Also, I had never dealt with these new things called memory cards before, so I didn't have that to save a file. Plus, unlike the SNES I had received at Christmas, I had expected to have the console come bundled with a game, especially and specifically Mario 64. After opening it up, I realized the N64 didn't have any of these, so it rested on top of my TV and did nothing. My dad walked in, asked why I wasn't playing, and I explained it to him. Instead of trying to solve the problem, he got immediately upset and proceeded to tell me, "Well, I hope you're happy now. You got a nice piece of plastic to look at." This made me feel horrible. And I remember sitting on my bed, holding the N64 controller, staring at the blank TV. I had the N64 for 3 days, sitting there doing nothing until I spotted a different deal at the time. We traded the N64 in for a thing called a PlayStation, which came with 2 controllers, 2 games, and the correct adapter needed for my old TV. I would never own an N64, nor did I really experience most of the games as they came out. I would experience them much later on with virtual consoles or Switch Online, things like that. I remember longing to play games like Wave Race, Donkey Kong 64, and so many more. I felt like I was missing out on so much. But I really did love my PlayStation. To this day, I'm a PlayStation guy. When I had kids and I started to realize they took an interest in technology and specifically video games, I vowed to not do what my dad had done. When the Switch released in 2017, my son was 3 years old, my oldest son. He went with me to pick up the system, and he was so stoked to go. I have a picture of us, and it's one of my favorite pictures of all time. We hung out and played Breath of the Wild and attempted to play snipper clips together. We had a blast. My youngest son has gotten super into Minecraft, and if I'm being honest, I don't really care for the game. It's just not my thing. But I do try to understand what he's doing, and I love to see all the things that he creates. I make sure to take some kind of interest in it to show that his interests are awesome. There are many things that my sons will explain to me, and I have no idea, no clue what they're talking about, but I try to show interest anyway. I want them to know that I do care about what they like and that they can connect with me in more ways than just doing the things that I'm doing. Sure, I try to have them do things with me and to teach them how to do things so hopefully it sticks for when they're older. You know, things like cooking, car maintenance, lawn work, etc. But sharing and entertainment is very important as well. I am frank with them sometimes. I may say something like, I'm not as into that as you are. But I always attempt to try and learn or at least listen to what they have to say. I don't want to respond the way my dad had done with me. That sense of not caring unless it was something he was interested in. It's funny how that one phrase, well, I hope you're happy now, you've got a nice piece of plastic to look at, could affect me so much. No, it's not funny. It's scary. I don't want to do that with my kids, especially around something they really enjoy. Who knew that owning an N64 for 3 days would have such a dramatic effect on me for so long that would alter how I respond to others' interests as well as my own kids' interests? The power of words, am I right? All right, our topic today is going to be content creation, so let's get to it. Since I was a youngin', I've been creative. Drawing, coloring, creating videos, creating my own store to sell my own services, making music, making shorts, streaming on Twitch, doing this podcast. I just love to create. I go through cycles too. So I'll go on a kick of drawing, digital or physical, then a kick of creating videos for my YouTube channel, then heavy kick on streaming, writing out these podcasts, etc. Then I'll cycle right back to drawing and repeat the whole process again. I never get bored, and I'm always creating. With my creation, I don't necessarily contribute to society, but I don't care. I'm making something, and I love it. Recently, I've really gotten into woodworking, too, and that has been a wonderful, wonderful creative outlet for me. Bookshelves that blend into the wall for my wife, a shoe rack / table that freed up space in our house. I'm currently building a chicken coop. What the heck? But I have a problem. I love creating, and I don't necessarily need to be recognized for my creations, but I do take success into account. Part of my personal enjoyment of creation is the success aspect of it. Did I do a good job? Did people find it good? Did people even care to watch or listen or take in what I created? This is bad, if I'm being plain. There is so much stuff out there in the world that is constantly being created. And there are so many awesome, creative people that it is easy to just simply get drowned out. Honestly, every week I think, why do I even do this? Nobody will see it, nobody cares, and they probably don't think it's good anyway if they do listen or watch what I create. What's the point? This leads to burnout, feelings of inadequacy, reduces my enjoyment of creation, and just generally gets me all twisted up. I mean, even as I say these words, recording them to upload at a later time, I'm thinking right now, will anyone be listening to this, be watching this? Have they made it this far in the episodes? Does this really matter? I'm talking about freaking video games and I'm not big, so why should anyone tune into this? It's tough. Even this podcast, which is easily my favorite creative outlet, draws in doubt and self-loathing. And I'm not that kind of person. Though the past couple years were an exception, for most of my life, I've been an outgoing, self-confident kind of guy. And I try to build others up. Yet my mental state seems to tell a different story sometimes. What made it worse for me in the past, now I see it as more of a boon, is that my passion in various creative outlets would cause others to follow, then they would have more success than I ever did. I would become knowledgeable at whatever creative outlet it was, practice a ton, and simply bust my ass to make it happen and make it the best I could. Then someone who just started because they saw what I did and they're like, that's cool, would have way more success. This isn't me belittling these others, nor is it me saying they were lazy. Heck, I am happy for them at my core. I really am. But that feeling of being a failure when seeing this, that's there too, and it sucks. The life out of my creative side leads me to shut down. This isn't good for my emotional or mental state. And I'm willing to bet I'm not alone here, especially when there is a constant stream of stuff to take in. It's easy to get drowned out. There's so much. If you aren't creating, you're being forgotten. It's a sad truth, and hopefully it will change, but I don't see it happening anytime soon. Sure, there are exceptions to this rule on different platforms, YouTube, Twitch, podcast servers. There are those that don't have to upload every single day, week, month to stay relevant. But for the majority of us, it's create or be ignored. It sucks, and it can tear down your passion in an instant. I have 2 kids. I love spending time with my family. I enjoy doing other things outside of just video games. This all takes a toll on content creation. This is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to hindrances in content creation. If this was my full-time job and I got paid for it, that would be a different story. There would still be other issues to fight against to make sure my mental and emotional state was healthy, but it would be different than where I'm at now. I mean, a good example is this podcast. The first season, I created each episode on a weekly basis. I did it all once a week, then released. I took a break after 20 episodes, and I question if anybody is even going to come back to listen, watch these episodes. Who's watching this, listening to this? I don't know. Even if I know some have stated they will, I still question it. I feel the pull to hurry, get these episodes out, make something new, something fresh, do it fast, record it, upload it, get it ready, make it the best you can, right lighting, right positioning. If it sucks, well, that's on me. I have to constantly slow myself down and say, it's okay, it will release when it does. I also chose to create all of these episodes beforehand and will simply release on a weekly schedule. This will reduce so much stress and just allow me to take in the creative aspect of all of it once they start releasing. But I'd be lying if I said I was carefree, even with this creative outlet that is by far the easiest for me to sink my soul into. Because I'm not creating each week, and I've taken months off between seasons, I already feel like I failed. And even now, this season's only going to be 9 episodes, and then I'm kind of doing a switch. Humboldt County, located very far north in California, is laid back. Sure, there are parts that aren't, but the general feel is just chill. I grew up in that atmosphere, so that's just what I knew. Even the first couple years of my college days were incredibly relaxed, especially compared to when I decided to move to Southern California and go to university. I would go on hikes into the forest, taking in the giant redwoods, and just enjoyed the quiet. I drove a lot since everything was so spaced out. I just enjoyed life at a slower pace. Here in Southern California, it's easy to have the need to constantly be entertained and doing something 24/7. And it can drain you. Content creation, generally speaking, is kind of like that. Fast paced, always changing, and demands your constant time and attention. This is rough for me, and I'd assume many others out there, because I'm more of a humble type at my core. I want to be more like that. I am proactive, sure, and I want to do the best job I can, but I also want to do it at my pace. Is that so much to ask? Well, depending on who you ask, yes. I've burnt out of streaming on Twitch maybe 3 or 4 times now. I've just gotten back into it. I'm being very restrictive with my schedule to make sure nothing changes. I really truly do like to stream, but there are aspects of it that I absolutely hate. I hate that if you don't play specific multiplayer games or just multiplayer games in general, you won't grow. You have to already be a larger content creator to succeed there. I hate that if you don't stream constantly and for large chunks of time, you most likely won't grow. It's not about quality, but rather how much your face is out there. Whether you believe someone to be a good content creator or not is purely subjective, and what I think is good may not line up. That's fine, and I try not to think of that aspect. But what I do hate is that it seems more and more that the only way to grow in the slightest is to just get lucky. I would give it my all, do so many things to improve my channel and my streams, only to have less success than the person who just showed up at the right time and just so happened to play the right game. Again, I'm not belittling others. I'm happy for others, and some content creators are 100% worth going to check out. The rebellious side of me responds with, nah, I won't play the game to grow. I'll do it my way. But the sad reality is that you have to play the game and get lucky. And talking about this just makes me so cranky and feel like an old fart who is just yelling into the sky, right? To add to this, in more recent discoveries, I ask myself constantly, why be so creative and inventive when attention spans don't care? I recently got into TikTok, as you probably have known if you've watched any of the previous episodes. Thanks to my wife, if you're listening, and I've posted some things. I saw some immediate success there for things that weren't that creative. I posted them to YouTube Shorts and saw more interaction and success with those shorts than 90% of the videos I worked hard on. These videos right here that I'm putting so much time and effort into probably won't get nearly as many views. So why do those others, why do those other creative things? Why do this? They don't lead to views, people watching and interacting with them, giving you their opinions or suggestions on making things better. There's no motivation to do work with these things like this here that we're doing. And it frustrates me while fulfilling that success aspect of my creative enjoyment. It sucks. There's a fine line to walk between content creation and mental/emotional stability. But something I've learned over the years is to always err on the side of you. That's why I still do the podcast, even though my doubts and frustrations are there. This creative outlet pushes me to be better and try new things, but it doesn't push me so hard that I just fall overboard. I don't drown in that self-doubt and frustration. I still cling to the joy of creating and being creative. I am able to walk the line with this creative outlet, and I'm so glad for it. I have my offline creative outlets still, woodworking, general handiwork around the house, cooking. I love cooking now. There are other things. But for content creation, I think I've found what works for me best, and I believe that is what is most important. If you're listening and you're a creative person, find that outlet that doesn't completely drain you. Find that outlet that still allows you to see anything as enjoyable, even if it might be a failure. You matter more than your content creation, and I hope you always, always remember that. Well, that's it for today. That's it for this episode. Thank you for hanging out till the end. Whenever I say thank you, and I do appreciate you, and I'm boggled by the fact that you're still here, if you're listening, watching, wherever this is, I'm 100% honest with that. Like I really do mean that. It's crazy to me that people even listen to me in my own mind. And thanks for putting up with that. The topic today, that was largely cathartic, honestly. But you know, are you a creative? Do you experience the same things? Am I alone in this? Am I going crazy? Maybe I'm not. Right? Do you know somebody you've seen this with? If you've got stuff that you've created you want to share, I mean, let me know. I'll do my absolute best in between all of my busy schedule to watch it, see it, view it, experience it. I love new stuff. And did you ever own the Nintendo 64? Or did you have a similar story to mine where it just wasn't the fairy tale beginning to a new console back in the day? I want to hear. I want to hear from you. Talk with me. You can leave comments below if you're listening on the audio formats. I think there are places where you can comment. I'm not sure, or review or whatever. You don't like this? Throw up a bad review. If you like it, throw up a good review. Interact with me. You can catch me. You can email me at bowertendo@gmail.com. I'm on Twitch, bowertendo, Mondays and Tuesdays typically. You can catch me on Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. I want to hear from you. And like I said, when I say that I appreciate you and it boggles my mind you listen and watch, I really mean that 100%. It's crazy to me. So anyway, I appreciate you. And until next time, see ya.